Have you ever woken up, tried to stand, and suddenly felt like your legs didn't quite belong to you anymore? Just a little weaker, a little slower, a little less stable than they were yesterday. Most people shrug it off as just getting older. But what if that tiny moment of weakness is actually the first warning sign of something far more serious? Something that silently steals your strength, your balance, and eventually your independence. Here's the part most people never hear. This isn't just aging, and it is absolutely not inevitable. In fact, people over 60 can rebuild strength faster than they think if they stop believing one very dangerous myth. The myth that cheese is bad for you. Because for decades we've been told to avoid it, too fatty, too salty, too indulgent. But the truth is almost the complete opposite. Hidden inside your fridge, inside foods you might be avoiding, are three specific cheeses that scientists have discovered can help combat muscle loss, restore stability, and even help you move with confidence again. And today I'm going to show you exactly what they are, how they work inside your body, and why the timing of when you eat them can completely change how strong you feel in as little as a few weeks. This isn't a fad. This is research-backed real-world nutrition that could become one of the simplest daily habits you ever adopt. But before we dive into those three life-changing cheeses, we need to talk about the real enemy you're fighting something most people don't even know they have until it's already taken too much. And once you understand what's happening inside your muscles, every piece of what I'm about to share will suddenly make perfect sense. So let's start with the truth about what's actually stealing your strength and why no one ever warns you about it, still it's almost too late. When we talk about getting older, most people imagine wrinkles, gray hair, maybe a little stiffness in the morning, but almost no one talks about the real threat lurking beneath the surface, the slow, steady loss of muscle that creeps in so quietly, you only notice it when everyday life suddenly feels heavier than it used to. And the truth is, this isn't your fault, because nobody tells you that the real battle after 60 isn't against age itself. It's against something much more specific. This condition has a name, sarcopenia, and once you know what it is, everything starts to make sense. Sarcopenia is the gradual breakdown of muscle fibers that happens when your body can no longer keep up with the repairs it used to do effortlessly when you were younger. Imagine your muscles like a house you've lived in for decades. When you were 30, every crack, every loose hinge, every tiny leak got fixed overnight without you even noticing. But after 60, that repair crew gets slower, smaller, and sometimes stops showing up altogether. And one day standing up from the couch requires a little push from your hands. The next carrying groceries feels like lifting bricks. Then balance, something you never thought about, suddenly becomes something you constantly pay attention to. But why does this happen? The science is surprisingly simple, yet rarely explained. After 60, your body becomes less responsive to the signals that tell your muscles to grow and repair. It's called anabolic resistance, and it means your muscles need much stronger, clearer instructions and more resources to rebuild themselves. And when they don't get that support, your muscle fibers begin shrinking, weakening, and losing the ability to generate power. That power isn't just about strength, it affects your stability, your reaction time, your balance, even the tiny adjustments your body makes to keep you upright when you step off a curb or reach for something overhead. This is why falls happen, not suddenly, but silently. Let me give you a real example. I remember someone telling me how they first realized something was wrong. She reached down to pick up a laundry basket, a task she'd done thousands of times, and for the first time in her life it felt heavy. Not impossible, but heavy enough that she paused. A few weeks later, she started using her hands to push herself up from chairs. Not long after, a simple slip in the kitchen turned into a fall because her legs couldn't stabilize fast enough. Moments like these aren't random. They're warnings, and almost everyone who experiences them wishes they had paid attention earlier when they still had time to rebuild what they were losing. So how do you stop this? The first practical step is deceptively simple. You must give your muscles the fuel they need to repair. And that fuel is high-quality protein, specifically the kind rich in leucine, the amino acid that switches on muscle building like flipping a light. Your body can't rebuild muscle without it. But here's where most people get it wrong. Many seniors think they're eating enough protein when in reality they're barely hitting half of what their muscles actually require. Toast and coffee in the morning, a light lunch, then a heavier dinner. This pattern starves your muscles for most of the day and only gives them what they need at a time when they can't fully use it. And the biggest mistake, believing that losing strength is normal, that nothing can be done, and that protein doesn't matter at my age. That belief is not only wrong, it's dangerous, because sarcopenia feeds on inaction. The less you support your muscles, the faster they decline. And once your strength drops below a certain point, everyday life becomes an obstacle course you never signed up for. But knowing this is only the beginning, because there is one factor even more dangerous than low protein intake. And almost everyone overlooks it. But just understanding this problem isn't enough, because what truly accelerates muscle loss, and what most people never realize, is something far more subtle and far more dangerous. And that's exactly what we're about to uncover next. And once you understand how silently muscle loss creeps in, the next question becomes, why does it hit some people so much harder than others? Because here's the part, almost nobody talks about. Muscles don't just disappear on their own. Something is actively draining them every single day, and if you don't know what it is, you can't stop it. The real problem most people face isn't simply that their muscles are getting weaker. It's that their body has lost the ability to use protein effectively. Imagine trying to build a wall, but every time you stack a brick, half of it crumbles in your hands. That's exactly what happens inside your body after 60. You're eating protein, but your muscles can't absorb and use it the way they used to. This is why someone can eat normally yet still lose strength year after year. It's not about the amount, it's about absorption. Scientifically, this is called anabolic resistance. Think of it like your muscles becoming hard of hearing. When you were younger, even a small amount of protein sent a loud, clear signal: build, repair, grow. But now that signal barely registers. Your muscles need a much stronger message and higher quality protein to respond. And this is why so many older adults lose muscle despite eating 3 meals a day. They're sending whispers to muscles that can only respond to a shout. And there's proof. In one study, researchers compared adults in their 20s with adults in their 70s. Both groups were given the exact same amount of protein. The younger participants showed a strong spike in muscle building activity, but the older adults almost no response. Their muscles simply ignored the signal. Then the researchers increased the amount and quality of the protein, especially leucine-rich foods, and suddenly the older adults' muscles woke up, showing a dramatic surge in muscle repair. The difference wasn't age. It was the type of protein and whether it reached the threshold needed to overcome anabolic resistance. So what does this mean for you in real life? It means you can't rely on tiny amounts of protein spread randomly throughout the day. The light breakfast, the coffee and toast routine, the I'll eat more later pattern, these are traps that keep your muscles starving for hours. Instead, you need targeted protein doses at the right times, especially in the morning, when your body is in a negative protein state after fasting all night. This is where certain foods, certain cheeses become power tools. They deliver dense, high-quality protein in a form your muscles can actually use, especially when paired with the right timing. But here's the trap most people fall into. They assume any protein will do. So they grab a tiny yogurt, a slice of processed cheese, or a quick piece of toast with peanut butter, and then wonder why they're still getting weaker. They're not hitting the leucine threshold. They're not overcoming anabolic resistance. And because no one explains this clearly, they blame age instead of the real problem: missing the exact nutrient trigger that tells the body to rebuild muscle. And knowing that brings us to an even deeper issue, one that affects not just how you eat, but how your muscles respond for the rest of the day. But even understanding anabolic resistance still isn't enough, because there's another hidden factor that drains your strength even faster, and almost no one realizes they're doing it every single day. And that's exactly what we're about to uncover next. And once you understand how your muscles become hard of hearing, there's another layer to this problem that almost no one warns you about. It's not just what protein you eat, it's when you eat it. Because timing, especially after 60, isn't a small detail. It's the difference between your muscles rebuilding or slowly wasting away. The real issue many people don't realize they're facing is this: by the time you wake up in the morning, your body has already slipped into a state called negative protein balance. All night long, your muscles have been breaking down to supply your body with the amino acids it needs to stay alive. So when you open your eyes, you're already starting the day at a loss, running on empty before breakfast even begins. And if your first meal is weak in protein, your muscles don't get the signal they need to shift back into repair mode. From a scientific perspective, morning is the most hungry moment your muscles experience in a full 24-hour cycle. Studies show that older adults need 25 to 30 grams of high-quality protein at breakfast to flip the switch from breakdown to rebuilding. But most people eat a breakfast that barely reaches 5 to 8 grams of protein: coffee, a piece of toast, maybe a bit of fruit. It fills the stomach, but leaves the muscles starving. This is why so many older adults feel shaky in the morning, weak when standing up, or unstable during the first hours of the day. It's not age, it's underfueling. And there's real-life proof of this. I once heard someone talk about how they always felt wobbly during their morning walks. They assumed it was just stiffness from sleeping. But when they tried increasing their morning protein, specifically using foods rich in leucine, they were stunned at how quickly their strength returned. Within weeks, they could walk longer, stand taller, and no longer needed to grip the furniture when getting out of bed. Their muscles weren't failing them. They were simply starved after a long night without fuel. So what's the practical fix you need to front-load your day with muscle-building power? Instead of a light breakfast, think of it as your first repair session. A serving of cottage cheese ricotta, or even a small amount of Parmesan combined with a piece of fruit or whole grain, gives your muscles exactly what they're craving the moment you wake up. Even better, aim for consistent protein doses at every meal, not one big protein dump at dinner. Your muscles can only absorb a certain amount at once. Spreading your protein evenly keeps your repair system running all day instead of only at night when it's least efficient. But here's a mistake almost everyone makes: saving your biggest meal for the evening. By then, your muscles can't fully use the protein you give them. You end up wasting what could have been powerful fuel if you had eaten it earlier. And when you repeat this pattern day after day, your muscles slowly drain away, not because you aren't eating enough, but because you're eating at the wrong times. And understanding this opens the door to something even more surprising, because the next factor isn't about what you eat at all. It's about how your muscles respond when you move, even in the smallest ways. But only knowing this still isn't enough, because the next element we're about to uncover can multiply or completely block your muscle-building efforts. And most people don't discover it until they've already lost far too much strength. And once you realize how much timing decides whether your muscles wake up or waste away, there's one more truth that completely shifts the picture. Food alone can't save your strength. Not even the best protein in the world can do it. Your muscles need a reason to grow, a signal that tells them, hey, we still need you. And without that signal, even the perfect diet falls flat. The real issue most people face is that they're moving less than they think they are. Not because they're lazy, but because life slowly becomes more careful as we age. You sit more to protect your joints. You avoid stairs because they feel risky. You walk shorter distances because you don't want to feel winded. And little by little, the very thing your muscles need to stay alive, gentle challenge, disappears. Muscles are like lights. If you don't turn them on often enough, they dim. And a dim muscle is one that stops responding to protein, no matter how much of it you eat. Here's the science behind it. When you do even a small amount of resistance, standing up from a chair, without using your hands, pushing against a wall, lifting a light band, your muscles create tiny micro tears. They sound scary, but they're the good kind. These tears send an urgent message to your body: repair me, rebuild me, make me stronger than before. And when that message meets high-quality protein, something incredible happens. Older muscles regain the same youthful response they had decades ago. Suddenly, the protein you eat actually works because your muscles now have a blueprint for how to use it. And this isn't just theory. A study on older adults showed that those who combined even very light resistance movements with protein saw nearly double the muscle-building response compared to those who ate the same amount of protein but stayed sedentary. Think about that. Same food, same amount of protein, completely different results just because the body was given a reason to rebuild. I've seen people in their 70s completely change the way they move just by adding simple chair stands and wall push-ups. One woman told me she went from avoiding stairs to climbing them confidently again, not because she trained hard, but because she trained smart. So what's the practical takeaway? You don't need a gym. You don't need heavy weights. You just need small, consistent signals throughout your day. Try standing up from a chair 5 times in a row, without using your hands. Walk for 10 minutes after breakfast to activate your leg muscles when protein is circulating. Use a resistance band for just a few minutes while watching TV. It's not about intensity, it's about consistency. These tiny challenges prime your muscles to absorb protein, turning every meal into a rebuilding opportunity. But here's where so many people go wrong. They wait. They say, I'll start next week, or I'm too tired today. The longer you delay movement, the harder it becomes to get your muscles to respond. Inactivity doesn't just slow muscle growth, it shuts it down. And once that happens, even strong doses of protein barely make a dent. Your muscles aren't refusing to grow. They've forgotten how to listen. And understanding this sets the stage for something even more surprising, the part most people never consider yet. It determines whether all your effort will actually show results. But only knowing this still isn't enough, because there's another factor hidden in your daily habits that can either supercharge your progress or quietly destroy it. And that's exactly what you need to hear about next. And once you understand how movement unlocks your muscles' ability to respond, there's another hidden factor that quietly determines whether all your effort will actually work the type of protein you choose. Because here's the uncomfortable truth, not all proteins are created equal. And at your age, your muscles can't afford the wrong kind. The real issue most people don't realize is this: as you grow older, your digestive and metabolic systems become much more selective. Your muscles are no longer satisfied with any protein. They demand protein that is rich in leucine, easy to digest, and able to reach the bloodstream quickly enough to trigger repair. But most common foods, bread, cereal, small yogurts, even many healthy snacks fall dramatically short. They fill your stomach, but they don't feed your muscles. So even when you think you're doing everything right, the results aren't showing because your body isn't receiving the exact materials it needs to rebuild. Scientifically, the difference is striking. In a well-cited study, older adults were given two different meals, one with low leucine protein and another with high leucine dairy protein. Despite identical calorie counts, the high leucine meal produced nearly 3 times the muscle-building response. 3 times. Same age, same conditions, just different protein sources. And it wasn't because the meal was larger, it was because their muscles finally received the specific amino acids required to flip the repair switch that age had made harder to activate. And you see this play out in real life all the time. I remember hearing about someone who swore they were eating healthy salads, toast-light soups, but kept getting weaker. When they finally switched to leucine-rich sources like cottage cheese, ricotta, or Parmesan, the change was almost shocking. Their legs felt steadier. Their arms felt stronger. Even climbing stairs felt different. It wasn't magic. It was simply the right building blocks reaching the right place at the right time. So how do you apply this in your daily routine? Start by making at least one of your protein sources a high leucine, high-quality option. A scoop of cottage cheese in the evening gives your muscles slow-release fuel while you sleep. A few tablespoons of Parmesan at lunch provide dense, easy-to-absorb protein in a tiny amount. Ricotta in the morning kickstarts your day with fast-acting muscle support. You don't need huge portions, you just need strategic ones. Think of it like upgrading from cheap materials to premium tools. You get more power with less effort. But here's where many people accidentally sabotage themselves. They rely on protein-like foods that look healthy, but offer almost nothing for muscle repair. Granola bars, sugary yogurts, low-protein cereals, fruit. Only breakfasts, these foods trick you into thinking you've eaten something substantial, but they barely move the needle for your muscles. And when you repeat this day after day, you're left wondering why you're still weak despite trying so hard. And that brings us to the next critical truth, because even the highest quality protein won't help you if you overlook the one factor that can quietly erase all your progress without you even noticing. But only knowing this still isn't enough, because there's another factor often hiding in your daily habits that can completely cancel out your muscle-building efforts. And that's exactly what we're going to uncover next. And once you understand the power of choosing the right protein, there's still one more factor that quietly decides whether all of this actually sticks. And it's something so simple, so ordinary that most people never realize it's sabotaging their strength every single day: inconsistency. Not lack of effort, not lack of knowledge, just inconsistency. The real problem is that muscle building for older adults doesn't work like it did in your 20s. Back then, skipping a day or two didn't matter. Your body bounced back effortlessly. But after 60, your muscles operate on a much tighter schedule. They need steady input, steady protein, steady movement, steady signals to stay alive and active. Go too long without supporting them, and they quickly slip back into breakdown mode. It's not fair, but it's real. Aging muscles don't hold on to strength. You have to remind them gently but regularly that you still need them. And science backs this up. Studies show that older adults who spread protein evenly throughout the day had stronger muscles, better balance, and fewer falls than those who ate the same amount of protein, but in irregular patterns. The difference wasn't the total protein, it was the consistency. Their muscles were constantly supplied with what they needed, instead of going through long stretches of deprivation, followed by one heavy meal. It's like watering a plant. A cup a day keeps it growing, but dumping a whole bucket once a week does nothing but overflow the pot. You can see this play out in real life so clearly. I once heard someone say they would eat healthy for 2 days, skip the next 3, then try to start again on Monday. And every Monday felt harder. Their legs felt stiffer, their energy lower, their confidence shaky. But when they switched to small, consistent habits, half a cup of cottage cheese at night, a sprinkle of Parmesan at lunch, a short walk after breakfast, the changes came surprisingly fast. Not because they worked harder, but because they finally worked steadily. So what does this look like for you? It means building a simple rhythm into your day instead of relying on motivation. A small protein-rich breakfast, a short walk, a bit of light resistance before lunch, a spoonful of ricotta in the afternoon, a sprinkle of Parmesan at dinner. None of these steps are big on their own, but together done consistently, they create momentum. And momentum is everything. Your muscles thrive on routines, not random effort. But the mistake many people make is expecting perfection. They think if they miss one day, everything is ruined. So they give up. Or they wait for the perfect moment to start when they have more time, more energy, fewer worries. That perfect moment never comes. The truth is, you don't need perfection, you just need repetition. Even imperfect repetition beats perfect intentions every single time. And now that you understand how consistency acts like the glue that holds your strength together, there's one final element left, the one that ties everything you've learned into a powerful daily muscle-protecting strategy. But only knowing this still isn't enough, because the next piece, the one we're about to uncover, can transform all of these insights into real lasting results that you can feel every single day. And now that you see how consistency holds everything together, there's one final piece that turns all of your effort into real visible strength, combining the right foods with the right timing. Because the truth is, your muscles don't just need protein, they need protein delivered at strategic moments when your body's actually able to use it. The real problem many older adults face is not that they lack protein, but that they eat it at the wrong times. You wake up in a muscle-depleted state, but start your day with coffee and a light breakfast. You eat a heavier dinner when your body is least capable of using protein for repair. And in between, you go long hours without giving your muscles the amino acids they need to stop breaking down. It's like trying to fill a bucket with holes. If you pour at the wrong time, everything leaks out. Scientifically, your muscle-building windows shrink as you age. Researchers found that older adults who consumed 25 to 30 grams of high-quality protein within 2 hours of waking had significantly better strength, better balance, and better muscle density than those who skipped a protein-rich breakfast. And when that morning protein was paired with even light activity, like a 10-minute walk, the muscle-building response doubled. Not because they exercised more, but because they timed their protein when the body was primed to use it. I've seen this play out in everyday life too. One older man told me he felt shaky every morning, struggling to stand up from the couch without using his hands. He wasn't weak, he was underfueled. When he shifted his routine to include cottage cheese with fruit right after waking, everything changed. Within 2 weeks, he felt steadier. After a month, he could stand without pushing off. It wasn't a miracle, it was timing. He finally gave his muscles what they had been begging for first thing in the morning. So here's how you apply this. Make your first meal of the day your most strategic one. Aim for 25 to 30 grams of high-quality protein the moment you break your fast cottage cheese with berries ricotta on whole grain toast or eggs with a sprinkle of Parmesan. Follow it with a few minutes of gentle movement, a walk around the block, walking in place, or even simple stretches. Your muscles respond best when protein and movement arrive together. Then space your next protein servings evenly: lunch, a light afternoon snack, and a moderate dinner. But here's the mistake almost everyone makes: they overload dinner with protein thinking they're making up for the day. It doesn't work. Your muscles can only absorb so much at once, and the rest is wasted. Meanwhile, the hours you spent underfueled earlier in the day continue to chip away at your strength. So even if your total protein is technically enough, your timing is working against you. And now that you understand how timing can completely shift your muscle-building results, there's still one last truth you need to hear, the part that pulls everything together and turns all of these insights into a truly sustainable plan. But only knowing this still isn't enough, because the next part, the final piece of this puzzle, can determine whether you simply know the information or actually transform your strength in the next 60 to 90 days. And once you understand how timing amplifies everything you eat, there's one final element that ties the entire strategy together: creating a daily routine that your muscles can rely on. Because while information is powerful, transformation happens when your habits repeat themselves automatically, without effort, without confusion, without starting over every Monday. The real issue many people face is that their routine keeps changing. One day they eat well, the next day they skip breakfast. One week they walk regularly, the next week they get busy or tired. And with every break in the pattern, their muscles lose ground. Not because they're failing, but because their body no longer knows what to expect. A strong body isn't built from occasional effort. It's built from rhythm, from repetition, from the tiny actions that become so natural you barely think about them. Science proves this. In a 12-week study on older adults, those who followed a simple, consistent routine: protein at breakfast, light activity before lunch, gentle resistance in the afternoon, gained significantly more muscle and balance compared to those who did the same activities, but in inconsistent patterns. The difference wasn't intensity, it wasn't motivation, it was routine. Their muscles adapted because the signals were predictable, not sporadic. And you can see this in real life too. People who improve the fastest aren't the ones who push the hardest. They're the ones who repeat the simplest habits day after day. I know someone in her 70s who transformed her stability entirely by sticking to a tiny daily routine: cottage cheese in the morning, 10 minutes of walking, a little Parmesan with lunch, stretching before dinner, ricotta at night. None of it was dramatic, but it was consistent, and her results were dramatic. After 2 months, she said her legs felt awake again, something she hadn't felt in over a decade. Here's how you can build your own muscle-protecting routine. Start with 3 anchors in your day. Anchor 1, a protein-rich breakfast within an hour of waking. Anchor 2, light movement shortly after eating, just enough to signal your muscles, but not enough to exhaust you. Anchor 3, spreading your protein across lunch, a light afternoon snack, and dinner, so your body has what it needs at every stage. When you connect these anchors, you create a rhythm your muscles can trust. But here's a mistake to avoid trying to build the perfect routine. Perfection kills progress. People who chase big, complicated plans burn out quickly. The ones who thrive are the ones who make it simple. Small moves, small servings, small steps, but repeated over and over until they become part of your identity. This is how strength returns. This is how confidence comes back. This is how independence is protected, not through force, but through rhythm. And now that you've seen how routine holds all your efforts together, there's still one more layer to uncover: the part that turns this routine into a long-term transformation instead of a short-term burst of motivation. But only knowing this still isn't enough, because the final element, the one we're about to explore, can determine whether these changes last a lifetime or fade away in a matter of weeks. And now that you see how a simple daily rhythm can reshape your strength, there's one last truth that takes everything to the next level: the power of pairing the right foods with the right movement at the right moment. Because your muscles are not just passive, they react instantly to what you do. And when you combine fuel with action, the effect multiplies. The problem many people face is that they separate nutrition and movement as if they're two different worlds. They think, I'll eat healthy today, and then much later say, I'll try to walk tomorrow. But your body doesn't operate on separate chapters. It works as one story. And the moment you eat protein, your muscles become more responsive for a few hours. If you move during that window even lightly, you unlock a muscle-building response that's significantly stronger than doing either one alone. But if you sit still during that window, your muscles lose the chance. Scientifically, this is known as the protein activity synergy. Researchers found that when older adults ate protein within 2 hours before or after light resistance activity, their muscles showed a younger, more powerful repair response. We're talking about real measurable changes: better balance, stronger legs, improved grip. And this wasn't from heavy workouts. It was from movements most people can do at home without equipment. The magic wasn't the intensity, it was the pairing. I've seen this pattern again and again in real life. One man in his late 60s told me he could barely walk up a small hill without feeling like his legs were going to give out. When he paired a protein-rich snack with 10 minutes of slow walking, the difference shocked him. His legs didn't feel heavy anymore. His balance improved. His confidence grew. Not because he suddenly became athletic, but because he finally aligned his food and his movement like two gears clicking perfectly into place. So here's how you apply this powerful synergy whenever you consume a high-quality protein, especially from cottage cheese, ricotta, or Parmesan. Add just a few minutes of movement, a gentle walk after breakfast, a round of standing up and sitting down after lunch. Light resistance band pulls in the evening. Your muscles don't need intensity, they need timing. When protein and movement arrive together, your body says, "Yes, I understand. Let's rebuild." But here's the trap to avoid thinking that more movement means better results. Overdoing it can cause soreness, inflammation, or discouragement. The goal isn't to train like an athlete, it's to activate your muscles at the exact moment they're ready to grow. Think small, frequent, intentional, not big, painful, or exhausting. And now that you understand the synergy between fuel and movement, we're finally ready for the part everyone waits for: the moment we tie everything together into a realistic day-by-day plan that fits effortlessly into your life and actually delivers results. But only knowing this still isn't enough, because the final step, the one we're about to explore next, is what turns these insights into a clear, actionable roadmap you can follow starting tomorrow morning. And now that you understand how food and movement work together, it's finally time to map everything into a clear, realistic plan. One that doesn't feel overwhelming, one you can actually see yourself doing every single day. Because information is just noise until it becomes a routine you live, not a routine you imagine. The real challenge most people face isn't knowing what to do, it's knowing how to do it in a way that feels natural, sustainable, and achievable. Too often, plans fail because they demand dramatic changes, strict diets, heavy workouts, intense schedules. But for older adults, the most effective plan is the opposite: simple, steady, repeatable steps that build on each other like bricks forming a strong foundation. Science supports this approach. In multiple long-term studies, older adults who followed small daily habits, consistent protein intake, balanced timing, light resistance, gentle activity saw greater improvements in muscle mass and balance than those who attempted aggressive programs or strict diets. It wasn't about intensity, it wasn't about perfection, it was about patience and predictability, the kind of effort your muscles can trust and respond to. And you can picture how it works in real life. Imagine starting your morning with a protein-rich meal that wakes your muscles up. A short walk afterwards signals them to begin repair. Lunchtime brings another small dose of nourishment. A few minutes of movement in the afternoon keeps your muscles alert. And your evening meal gently tops things off so your body has what it needs to restore itself while you sleep. None of it feels heavy or exhausting. It feels like caring for yourself systematically, intentionally, consistently. Here's what this looks like in practice: a morning anchor that includes 25 to 30 grams of high-quality protein, a midday anchor that blends a protein boost with simple movement, an evening anchor that supports recovery overnight. 3 touch points repeating day after day, giving your muscles exactly what they need at the exact moments they need it. And when you combine this with the right cheese choices, slow release, fast release, and dense protein sources, you create a powerful cycle of repair that runs 24 hours a day. But there's a mistake you absolutely must avoid: expecting overnight results. Strength doesn't return like a light switch, it returns like a sunrise. Slowly at first, then brighter. Then suddenly you realize your steps feel steadier, your balance feels quicker, your body feels more alive. This is the kind of progress that sneaks up on you in the best way possible, but only if you commit to the rhythm long enough to let it transform you. And now that you have the framework, the timing, the protein, the movement, the consistency. It's time to reveal the final truth, the one that determines whether everything you've learned turns into real, long-lasting change. But only knowing this still isn't enough, because the final insight we're about to explore will show you exactly how to lock in your progress, so it lasts not just for weeks or months, but for the years ahead. And now that you've seen how a simple daily structure can rebuild your strength, there's one final truth that determines whether those results actually stay with you: understanding your personal limits and adjusting your routine without losing your momentum. Because what truly derails progress isn't the plan itself. It's what happens on the days when life gets messy, energy dips, motivation fades, or your body feels a little more tired than usual. The real issue is that most people assume they must follow their plan perfectly or not at all. And that mindset becomes the very thing that breaks their progress. When one tough day comes, and it always does, they feel like they failed, so they stop completely. But muscle doesn't need perfection. Muscle needs persistence. It needs you to keep showing up in small ways, even when you can't give 100%. In fact, the ability to adjust without quitting is one of the strongest predictors of long-term muscle health after 60. Science is clear about this. Research on older adults shows that flexibility, adapting your routine without abandoning it, leads to better long-term outcomes than rigid programs. People who allowed themselves to shift intensity, shorten sessions, or swap exercises when needed were more consistent and saw greater improvement. Their bodies responded because their habits didn't collapse every time life threw a curveball. They stayed engaged even if the effort wasn't perfect. And you've probably seen this in your own life. Think about a time you tried a new routine, maybe walking every morning, stretching every night, or eating healthier meals. You were motivated at first, but then one day you got busy or tired or distracted and you skipped it. Then you skipped again, and suddenly the routine was gone. But imagine if instead of stopping, you simply adapted. You walked for 5 minutes instead of 15, or you swapped a missed stretch session with a quick breathing exercise, or you replaced a full protein meal with a smaller one. You wouldn't have lost momentum. You would have kept the flame alive, even if it was small. And keeping it alive is what matters most. So here's what this looks like in practice when you wake up feeling low energy. Don't skip your protein, just make it smaller. When your legs feel stiff, don't avoid movement. Walk slower, shorter, or softer. When time gets tight, don't cancel your routine, compress it. Your muscles don't know the difference between a perfect day and an imperfect one. They only know whether you showed up. And every time you do, even at half strength, you reinforce the pathway that keeps them active, responsive, and alive. But here's the mistake: to avoid thinking that adjusting your routine means lowering your standards. It doesn't. It means honoring your body while staying committed to your long-term strength. Consistency doesn't mean sameness. It means continuity. The people who age the strongest aren't the ones who never get tired. They're the ones who keep going, even in a small way, on the days when it would be easier to stop entirely. And with that comes the final insight, the one that pulls together every strategy, every habit, every truth, and shapes them into a long-term transformation you can carry into the next decade of your life. But only knowing this still isn't enough, because the last piece we're about to uncover is what ensures your progress becomes permanent and not just a temporary boost. And once you understand why flexibility keeps your progress alive, there's one final layer that turns everything you've done into long-lasting change, tracking your transformation in a way that motivates you instead of discouraging you. Because strength after 60 isn't just something you feel. It's something you notice in small, meaningful victories that build your confidence day by day. The real problem many people face is that they rely on the wrong markers to measure progress. They look for dramatic changes in the mirror or on the scale, and when they don't see them immediately, they assume nothing is happening. But muscle doesn't grow in dramatic leaps at this age. It grows in quiet, powerful ways that show up in your daily life long before they show up visually. And if you don't know where to look, you might miss the signs that your body's already getting stronger. Science proves that the earliest signs of muscle recovery appear in function, not appearance. Older adults who improved their protein intake and added gentle movement didn't see sudden changes in muscle size at first. What changed was their ability to stand up more smoothly, walk longer without stopping, balance better on uneven ground, and lift objects they previously struggled with. These functional wins are the real proof that your routine is working, and recognizing them is what fuels your motivation to keep going. And you can hear this in people's stories. One woman told me she didn't notice anything at first. She felt the same, looked the same, moved the same. But then about 3 weeks into her routine, she realized she could get out of her favorite chair without using her hands. A week later, she walked up her driveway without holding the railing. These small moments weren't small at all. They were the first signs of her strength waking up again. And they became the motivation that pushed her to keep going. So here's how you track your progress in a way that actually lifts you up. Forget the scale, forget the mirror, forget the tape measure. Instead, pay attention to your life. Notice how many seconds it takes to stand up. Notice how steady you feel when you step into the shower. Notice whether you can carry groceries with less strain. Write these things down, celebrate them, because these are the signs that your muscles are repairing, your balance is improving, and your independence is returning. But here's the trap to avoid comparing yourself to your past self from decades ago or to people around you. Comparison steals your progress. What matters is not how fast someone else improves, it's that you are improving. Your journey is your own, and your strength returns at the pace your body's ready for. When you measure progress the right way, you build the motivation you need to sustain this transformation for the long term. And now that you understand how to recognize your wins and stay motivated, you're finally ready for the biggest moment of all, the part that connects everything you've learned into a powerful, lifelong system for protecting your body, your independence, and your quality of life. But only knowing this still isn't enough, because the final step, what we're about to explore next, is the key to turning this from a routine into a true transformation you can rely on for years to come. And now that you know how to track those quiet victories that prove your strength is returning, there's one final insight that brings the entire journey full circle. The understanding that rebuilding muscle isn't just a physical transformation, it's an identity shift. Because when you start choosing foods that support your strength, when you move with intention, when you pay attention to progress instead of perfection, you're not just changing your body, you're changing who you believe yourself to be. The real issue for so many people isn't that they can't get stronger, it's that they no longer see themselves as someone who can. Years of fatigue, stiffness, and small struggles build a quiet narrative that says, this is just what happens now. But that story is wrong, and the moment you begin feeding your muscles properly, the moment you start moving consistently, that old story begins to unravel. Suddenly, you're not the person who can't walk far or struggles with stairs. You're the person who is actively rebuilding. You're the person who shows up every day. You're the person who is taking control again. Science supports this idea too. Researchers found that older adults who adopted a strength identity, who believed they were capable of getting stronger, experienced better improvements in mobility and balance than those who saw themselves as fragile or limited. The changes weren't just in the muscles, they were in the mindset. Progress became faster, motivation lasted longer, and the results held steady because the person believed in the strength they were creating. And you can hear this in countless real stories. There was someone who once described herself as too old to change. But after a few weeks of protein-timed meals and gentle stretches, she noticed her hands no longer shook when standing from the couch. She started walking farther. She stopped avoiding stairs. And one day she said something she hadn't said in years: I feel capable again. That wasn't just a physical improvement. That was an identity awakening. When you begin to trust your body again, everything shifts. So here's how you build this new identity in your own life. Celebrate consistency more than intensity. Ask yourself, what did I do for my strength today? Not, was it perfect? Notice every small win, because every win reinforces the message that you're someone who invests in your body. When you start seeing yourself as a person who takes small, steady actions to protect your strength, your habits stick effortlessly. You stop fighting yourself. You start supporting yourself. But here's the mistake to watch for slipping back into the old narrative. The moments when you feel tired or discouraged or frustrated, and that little voice whispers, maybe this won't work for me. That's not truth, that's memory. And memory does not define your future. Your identity does. And your identity is shaped by what you repeatedly do. And with that shift in identity comes the final step, the moment we bring every tool, every insight, every lesson into one powerful conclusion that shows you exactly how to protect your strength, your independence, and your future. But only knowing this still isn't enough, because the final conclusion we're about to reach is what seals all these ideas into a path you can follow confidently for the rest of your life. So now you've seen how the right foods, the right timing, and the right habits can work together to rebuild your strength and support your overall health in ways that are both simple and powerful. These are small choices, but they add up to big changes: stronger muscles, steadier balance, better energy, and a healthier future for your kidneys and your whole body. And I want you to remember something important: it is never too late. No matter your age, no matter your starting point, your body is still capable of rebuilding, restoring, and responding. Every step you take, every mindful choice you make is a vote for your long-term strength and kidney health. You deserve a life where you feel stable, confident, and in control, and you are absolutely capable of creating that life, beginning with the choices you make today. If this video helped you, please make sure to like it, save it, and share it so you can come back to these tips whenever you need a reminder. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel, because I'm here every week with the latest, most practical medical insights to take care of your health in the simplest, safest way possible. Your journey matters, and I want to walk it with you. Thank you so much for spending your time with me today. Take good care of yourself, stay hopeful, and remember you're stronger, more capable, and more resilient than you think. I'll see you in the next video.